Hi, everyone. It's Amanda Rieger Green. Welcome to Soul Sessions. How is that Taurus full moon for you? What's going on? What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? What revelations are coming through? What heartbreaks? What pain? Because I know it's a lot because I am feeling it myself. And it can feel quite overwhelming, but it also feels true. It feels penetratingly true. And we can only move forward from here. On November 6th, right after the full moon, Venus will enter Scorpio. Now, remember, Mercury is in Sag. It hasn't retrograded yet. Mars is now in Sagittarius, but we have good old Venus, love and romance and passion and money entering Scorpio. Like the things heat up when Venus enters Scorpio and they get a little sexy, get a little bit crazy. Do y'all remember that? I'm laughing. Do you remember the hot, sexy Matrix? I forget what it was. It was that YouTube craze where it was like this ridiculous guy talking about this matrix of dating women. And he'd talk about the unicorn, but it was called the hot, crazy matrix. And it was hysterical and amazing. It was like, don't ever date girls named Tiffany. And no offense to Tiffany's or hairdressers. And no offense to Tiffany's or hairdressers. And actually, I have a really sweet friend whose name is Tiffany and she's a hairdresser. But she would raise her hand for the hot, crazy matrix 100% and with like all the glory of it. Venus in Scorpio is the hot, crazy matrix. Like it really is. It is passionate and sexy and dynamic. And it is like once it gets its claws in you, it can't let go. It loves intimacy and devotion and secrecy and jealousy and manipulation, all the dark dynamics and passion and intensity. Venus in Scorpio brings that. So be mindful of your pleasures. And maybe Venus in Scorpio for you will show you where you find pleasure and passion and desire. And if you're somebody who has kind of more Aquarian energy, air energy that can be detached and dissociated, and I'm raising my hand for that because I can be that way at times. Venus brings the juice, it brings the sexuality and the sensuality, but it also brings the loco energy, the crazy energy that is just fueled in getting what it wants and like doing it at all costs. And then once it gets what it wants, it doesn't want to let go. So with Venus in Scorpio, it is really imperative to be mindful of things like jealousy, paranoia, manipulation, secrecy, because that and utilizing the darker side of your personality in your relationship dynamics, meaning I don't want to lose this person and I won't lose them at any cost. So it's almost like the shadow side of Venus in Scorpio is behaving without integrity from pure like desire and lust. Be mindful of that. See how that dynamic can or could be true for you in your relationships. On November 7th, this is one of those power days where I just would say, stick this on your calendar, write it down, make a little alert where I feel like people will reveal themselves to you. You know, that adage, when people show you who they are, believe them. That's the adage of the day. So, whatever shows up for you relationally in that day, whether it is loving and beautiful and supportive, or it is draining, exhaustive, or manipulative, whatever shows up, believe that and write that back down in your journal. Write it down in your journal. Take that as a data point or a correlation point for what is being revealed in you and where your health and well-being lies from a relational perspective. Also on November 7th, this is huge, Uranus retrograde, which Uranus has been retrograde since September 6th. Yeah, Uranus retrograded early in September, and it retrograded at a little bit more than 1 degree of Gemini. On November 7th, Uranus retrograde will move back into Taurus. This is a big deal because this is Uranus's last foray in Taurus for many, many years. And when Uranus moves, anytime the outer planets move in and out of signs, it's very dynamic. Uranus is about quick dynamic change. It is about birth and destruction. It is literally lightning strikes kind of energy. Taurus represents the material world, literally finances, the economy. It also represents Mother Earth, the earth. And while we have had 2025 has been the one of the biggest seismic years in recorded history as far as earthquakes, natural disasters, and the Schumann resonance moving. There's so much going on. With Uranus moving back into Taurus, I think we will see an even greater uptick in the earth and her movement and the tectonic movement that is going on from from the perspective of Earth, meaning earthquakes, tsunamis. So I'm not saying this to freak you out, but that's really what Uranus and Taurus rules. And I think moving through these last degrees of Taurus, Uranus going back there, there'll be an increase in activity. I think there also may be some financial upheaval economically the last couple of months of 2026. So again, doing that financial audit and where you're investing your money and where is it important to invest your money in things that provide you value. So if that is your spiritual life and well-being, your health and wellness, your family, looking at that and trimming the fat on the superfluous stuff, because I feel like that Uranus is going to really shake this up. And Uranus will station direct, just so you know, in early February of 2026 at 27 degrees of Taurus. So Uranus will be in Taurus retrograde through February. And that is really, really important to know because we're also going to have this review of energy around our self-worth and how well we value ourselves. So it's such an energetic inside job. So be mindful that in the months ahead, we may see some massive economic shifts, resource distribution. It's a time of refining our personal worth and self-worth. There may be disruptions technologically and environmentally, and what to be mindful of. And like, this is the neon light of this whole Uranus retrograding back into Taurus season is panic and instability. Where do you go to panic? And if there is panic on a mass scale, do you panic or do you ground and do you trust? So panic and instability, and also feeling powerless to change your circumstances. And when you combine this with Saturn in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces, and those both retrograde, there's a lot of self-pity that can come up this month and in the months ahead of feeling like you are powerless and you can't change your circumstances. And so it's really about recognizing that feeling and seeing where you can do your own inner attitude adjustment. The highest expression of Uranus moving back through Taurus is innovation in your energy field and your value and your abundance. So it can actually be wildly economically or financially quite enriching and really good for your pocketbook, especially if you're innovative, you take action, and you truly believe you are worthy of abundance. This can also free us from outdated survival strategies. So again, that hoarding I was talking about sometimes, It's like that's a coping mechanism, a survival strategy. This can reveal some outdated survival or coping mechanisms that really don't apply to your now and who you are today and who you've become and your wisdom and your expertise. And this is also a really great time to become more sovereign in your own values and your own sense of self-worth. So this is a great time to really focus on upgrading your beliefs around money and abundance, to rebuild a stability or a foundation that supports your evolution, your now, who you are today. And also that trusting change can liberate you, because that's the one thing with Uranus moving back into Taurus, is that sometimes we get what we need in ways that we don't want it. But in the long run, it's like, gosh, I'm so glad that happened. I'm so glad that this relationship totally, ended on this dramatic note, because otherwise I'd have stayed in it 3 more years, or business partnership, or commitment, or behavior, whatever it may be. So the bottom line is the disruption you may feel financially, energetically, in your self-worth is actually ushering in some kind of new liberation or freedom. And that's what Uranus moving back into Taurus, ultimately on a personal level, will rewire and rework through us through February. And then when it goes direct in February, stations direct in February, we will have the opportunity for incredible momentum, I think, financially and in our inner richness and abundance. On November 8th, this is another one of those power days. And I'd say this is probably one of the spiciest power days of the month, where it feels like something destined may happen, like right place, right time energy. So just put that on your calendar and remember that. Guess what happens on November 9th? Mercury will retrograde. And I am going to just do a whole podcast on this, but let me give you the quick roadmap, and I'll do a short, succinct podcast with this to give you kind of the navigational tools. But Mercury will retrograde at 6 degrees of Sagittarius. And when Mercury retrogrades in Sag, it is a rewiring, revisiting, revising of our beliefs and our personal philosophies. And I'm going to leave it at that. So that's what happens November 9th. So just remember the 8th through the 10th, glitches, delays, if something is canceled, let it go, reschedule it. Just any kind of miscommunications, mishaps, or delays, let it go and know that it will be rescheduled at a later date. It wasn't supposed to happen. And don't allow, if you can, anything that disrupts your calendar, your schedule, wreck your happiness and joy. Remember that. On November 11th, Jupiter will retrograde. So right after Mercury retrogrades, Jupiter retrogrades. Jupiter retrogrades at 25 degrees of Cancer. And Jupiter will be retrograde until March 11, 2026. So Jupiter is retrograde through the end of this year and into the early spring of next year. And it retrogrades from 25 degrees of Cancer back to 15 degrees of Cancer. So definitely look at where this is hitting your chart. You can look at where any of this stuff is hitting your chart, but it is imperative to really see where this retrograde is happening in your natal chart, or I would definitely check that out. I know absolutely where it's happening in my chart. So it gives you a little bit more detail into what is happening. And when Jupiter retrogrades, Jupiter is about expansion, growing our horizons, faith, luck, opportunity. All of that energy turns inward. So there's opportunity for inner expansion. Jupiter is at home in Cancer. It's exalted in Cancer. It creates more love and nurture, intimacy, connection in the sweetest, most compassionate ways. It creates a maturing of emotional security and security within ourselves, feeling at home in our own skin, feeling comfortable with who we are. So when Jupiter retrogrades, it is an intimate love letter to yourself. It's time for all of the growth and expansion you've been doing in the prior months while Jupiter has been in Cancer. And Jupiter, I think, y'all don't quote me on this because I don't have it in front of me. I think Jupiter entered Cancer in May of 2025. It could have been June, but I think it was May. But it's one of those times. So you can look back and you can Google it yourself, see when Jupiter entered Cancer. But look back and say, okay, where have I been more kind and gentle to myself? Where have some of my home and family relationships shifted, changed, or been nurtured? Where have I grown in my compassion, in my intimacy and connection and love? Where have I grown in my sense of safety and security, or at least the emotional intelligence around that? And then know that as Jupiter retrogrades, there is a definite maturing of emotional safety that happens. It is an inside job, and it is also a time when childhood trauma, pain can heal internally. I think probably one of the biggest benefits to Jupiter retrograde in Cancer is re-nurturing yourself, reclaiming aspects of yourself and your soul that may have been harmed or incurred some sort of trauma, blow, or pain in the past, whether it was childhood, teenage years, your 20s, 2 years ago. You see what comes up for you, but there is an opportunity to self-soothe and to really heal and to heal from the inside out. It's also a time to commit to healing some brokenness from a family dynamic standpoint. Then this may or may not apply to you, and it may not feel right or be right. But if there is something broken from a family of origin standpoint, or you're living from an old pain or an old trauma in an actual biological familial sense, this may be the time that you want to revisit that and do some personal work around it to see what needs healing within you, maybe what your side of the street is. And maybe you don't have a side of the street. Maybe it was a pain that you couldn't have changed that was inflicted upon you. That's the kind of energy that you want to review and to let go of and forgive. And I smile because I remember the last time Jupiter was in Cancer. Jupiter was in Cancer the last time, 2013 to 2014. And I don't know the exact dates, but let's say like June of 2013 to June of 2014. And that's about right, actually. But Jupiter retrograded at the end of the year. So probably October or November of 2013. And it was retrograde around the same time frame in Cancer. And for me, that year from the spring summer of 2013 to 2014 was probably one of the largest transformations I ever had on a personal level, on a psychic level, on a change of lifestyle level, on a commitment to my health, healing, well-being, a commitment to my spiritual path. It was probably one of the most dynamic and revelatory times of my life. But if I think back to Jupiter's retrograde and what transpired in the months of Jupiter retrograde in Cancer for me, I remember committing to loving myself and committing to my quiet time, my solitude, my spiritual life, and my psychic development. And I did it very much routinely and behind the scenes. And probably one of the most joyful things for me during that time was when I got home in the evening from work, I would walk and run. Like I would just go on probably like an hour and a half walk and run. And I would walk and run and I would go through this park and I would watch kids playing soccer and people with their pets. There was a dog park and then there was a soccer field. And I'd watch kids riding their bikes and people with their pets at the dog park. And I would walk and run and I would feel the cool, crisp air of the winter. And I would just enjoy the scenery while I was moving my body, and I would reflect and be happy. And it was when I started really, really rewriting my internal dialogue with myself. And it was like I went inside the cave, and those months was probably, it was like going to the psycho spiritual gym and really just committing to my psyche, my intuitive and psychic abilities, and my cognizance and consciousness. And it was like just an acceleration period, but it was all behind the scenes. So just know that a lot of spiritual and personal growth can happen. And the highest expression of this is your inner wealth becomes outer confidence. And you begin to really, truly feel like you belong, like you are a part of. So it's really, I'm a huge fan of Jupiter retrograde in Cancer. And I think it's a very enriching, transformative time if we, you, me, take the time to really recommit to our spiritual life and to invest in anything that helps us stay accountable to our spiritual life and feeding our mind, body, and spirit connection. It's huge. Next week, we are going to finish out the energy of the month. And there's a lot happening. I know I keep using the word a lot, but that's true. It's what's going on. We've got Mercury retrograde moving back into Scorpio. We've got a Scorpio new moon. We've got Saturn stationing direct in Pisces and more. So you will absolutely want to join me and not miss this, because this month is action packed on a soul level, on a personal level. And I want to make sure that you are equipped to stay the freaking course. Be well, everybody.